In our last conversation, you mentioned you really want to give one aha moment for the listeners. So, what's one mindset shift or move our listeners can take to level up their content starting this week?
Ooh, okay, to level up their content style, ooh, so one content insight you can do this week, stop making your top of funnel content, like, very heavily definition based. The moment somebody enters your ecosystem, they should understand what your status quo is on the category. So,
Right.
when we think of top of funnel content, you think of, like, what is this or this statistics or topic, whatever. Immediately indoctrinate people the moment they enter your ecosystem from the top of the funnel and start injecting more opinion into top of funnel, right? It's not just a what is payroll, what is payroll management? It's how I feel about payroll management, how payroll management should be ran. Here's how most people do it and here's why we think that's wrong. So just like indoctrinate. That's what I would say you could do this week.
A couple of years ago, I was working as an in house product marketer, trying to figure out how to get our blog to actually do something, not just bring traffic, but real leads. That's when I found Lashay on LinkedIn. Her posts felt different, no buzzwords, no jargons, just straight up value on how to write bottom of the funnel content that brings people ready to buy. I remember saving so many of her posts that I literally had to refer to them while planning my content, what my team was working on, and her stuff literally gave me a lot of clarity when I had none in the BOFU side of things. And now we are here 2 years later, and I get to talk to her on this podcast. Lashay Lewis is the founder of BOFU.ai and probably one of the most practical voices in content marketing today. She has helped brands boost blog conversions, build comparison pages that actually work, and most importantly, connect content to revenue. So, if you're working in B2B, trying to turn content into real results, this episode is the deal. Lashay, welcome to Behind the Brief. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. Thank you for the amazing introduction. I am super excited to be here. I really hope to be able to give a lot of value today. So thank you. And I'm super excited.
Thank you so much. And I'm super excited. So let's do some real talk on why BOFU still gets missed. So let's go back to basics for a second, right? A lot of teams still overload their blogs with TOFU content and wonder why it's not converting. What's your opinion on that?
I feel like it's like one of the most common problems that teams are facing right now. And a lot of times when I create LinkedIn content and I talk about these things, the marketers that are actually on the ground doing the boots on the ground work get to see it. But I'm really talking to leadership because that's where a lot of marketers get the most pushback. So even if they do want to do the bottom of funnel thing, they have to go through 2 or 3 people just to even get approvals on being able to write this type of content. So a lot of my content is geared toward typically VP of marketing professionals, CMOs, like higher level professionals, mainly because, well, 2 types of content. So the visual style content is for the marketers to grasp and understand. The more like platitude style, okay, here's my thoughts on the industry posts are more C-level directed, again, because culture is dripped from the top down, not the bottom up. So you need to have the people that are leading the company have a culture of, yeah, we're not going to focus all of our attention on top of funnel because we know while it generates traffic, it's not the best at generating actual leads and inbound
Right.
leads. And so it's just about setting that expectation of like, you can't have both, right? You can have both, but you either need to change the strategy and focus more on bottom of funnel if you want inbound leads, or if you want more top high level demand style generation stuff, that's when you go top of funnel. But you cannot go top of funnel and expect bottom of funnel results, right? And every part of the funnel is important. It's just knowing what part of the funnel does what. And then based on that, that's where you shift your focus. Yeah.
I have a follow up question on that. Like, why do you think BOFU content still gets ignored, and why most B2B teams are still not doing the right thing with BOFU content?
It gets ignored because so you know how people say, don't judge a book by its cover? It gets ignored because the cover is pretty boring, right? So when you look at bottom of funnel content, typically you'll see like lower search volume and which creates a sequence in people's heads of like, well, if it has low search volume, I'm probably not going to get that much traffic from it. Why am I wasting my time with this when I could go after a search term that gets 50,000 searches a month and be able to at least capture, even if I could capture like 10% of that traffic, that would be amazing for my company, right? And again, it all depends on the goal. That's amazing for your company if that's what your goal is to do, top high level awareness. But it doesn't matter if you rank for something that has 100,000 searches a month. If the intent is not there to purchase something, they will not purchase anything versus if you focus on a bottom of funnel search term with let's say 30 searches a month. If the intent is there, that will convert, I've seen up to 3 times higher than top of funnel content, So I think it's just a matter of like it's different for them. Again, the usually like C-suite level individuals, again, VP of marketing type of individuals are very like now, how can I get the most this, the most that? I want the most leads. So, theoretically it's like, okay, let me focus on the thing that has the highest search term because, it makes sense that that would get me leads, but there's a nuance in a level deeper that they need to go and say intent over volume is what I always say. So again, if somebody's like, hey, I want to drive inbound leads and I bring them back a list of keywords that are like 10 or 20 searches and they're like, hey, well, these are a little low. Do you think I'm like, yeah, of course we are. Also, I just think it gets ignored because it's not cute, right? It's not as exciting as like seeing 50,000 searches a month in Ahrefs or 10,000 searches a month versus seeing 30 searches a month. It's just not as exciting. So people tend to ignore it and say, you know what, let's go after the big stuff. When honestly, the little stuff is usually easier to rank for and much more high intent. Yeah.
I think looking at the numbers that BOFU has versus TOFU, I think the excitement is where it lies at the top of the funnel. But I think the real work that gets actually converted, the real numbers that should be getting converted are at the bottom. So maybe it's boring, maybe it's not that exciting, but it brings money. So I think you need to focus on that as well. And it's important and you need to do that right.
But also it's hard too, right? Like it's easier to create top of funnel content. And the reason it's easier to do that is because the knowledge level of the reader is probably hand in hand with the knowledge level of the writer. The knowledge level of the reader is pretty low because they are not really problem aware a little bit. They're trying to figure it out. They're not solution aware. So it's like it's easier to hire a random freelancer and say, "Hey, create this article for me on like what is payroll management? Like what is it?" You know, cuz typically what they'll do is they'll go around Google and pull things and say, "Hey, compile this together." Or they'll go to GPT and say, "Hey, I'm trying to create an article on payroll management. Can you give me an outline?" Something like that.
Exactly.
The reason it's easier to do that, again, because the knowledge level of the reader is low, but when you start to move toward bottom of funnel, the knowledge level of the reader gets higher because they're more solution aware. So they've probably been tasked by somebody in the company to go look for a solution, and now they're reading through blogs, they have a nuanced understanding of what their problem is. And if the person that's writing the content does not have a nuance understanding of the topic to the point where they can speak to it in written content, the reader is going to be able to smell it from a mile away. So it's nuances there. And I think that's why a lot of people shy away from it. They're just like, all this for 30 searches a month. Like, I'm not. So I think there's layers of why people don't do bottom of funnel. Yeah.
Right. And I think one hack that we could get into that system to actually get it done with the right people, I think get your blogs edited by SMEs. They would have better idea on what the topic is and why it's important to have more specific takes in that blog or whatever content that you're creating for bottom of the funnel instead of just writing generic product knowledge or the industry scope itself. So I think the subject matter expert can add valid points to that and make it more working in the motion, I guess.
And with AI, like there are ways to create little workflows around this, right? So if you have an interview, with a subject matter expert, you take the transcript, run it through an LLM and say, "Hey, can you pull out the differentiators? Can you pull out some key points that I can include? Can you pull out some quotes that I can include in the content?" Like that's what brings content to life. So totally, like, I still think interviewing subject matter experts is the play. Now, have ran into the concern before of like, "Oh, the subject matter experts are so busy in my company.
Yeah.
How do I get an interview with them?" So on and so forth. So it's like, yeah, and again, it goes back to that point of like bottom of funnel needing this stuff, and people are just like, "Well, is it worth doing it?" and things like that. So, I definitely feel like interviewing the subject matter experts is huge. If you can get an interview with them, great. If they have written previous pieces, try to like pull from that. One thing that I would do is like when I would have the interview with the subject matter experts, like I would just put everything in a dashboard so I could have it to pull from for future articles, because bottom of funnel is really just saying the same thing over and over in slightly different ways for slightly different use cases. But once I have that information just stored away and consolidated, I'm usually pretty good from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of questions to ask on the AI workflow side of things, so we definitely
Yeah.
have to get back on that topic.
Yeah.
But I do have some questions around the blog conversion rates that you have reached. It's reached till 30% for a lot of teams, which sounds wild to most people. Like, how have you done that? What's something that you always look for in a content audit?
Right. So a lot of companies I work with have some type of blog already. So I always tell them it's easier to start with something than from nothing. So if they have bottom of funnel content that they've written, somebody in house has written, another agency has written, we'll go through that first and work on increasing the conversion rates from those pieces first. And then once we do that, then we say, okay, what net new pieces can we add to this? So I definitely find that it's quicker starting with pieces that they already have. And then so I have frameworks for how I run things. So essentially, I'm looking at the piece, running it through my own framework and saying, okay, here's what we need to add. Let's reposition this a little bit. Um, and some of the clients that I worked with have seen like massive conversion rates from just making the content more product led, right? Because
Wow.
I think that's one of the issues. Another issue with bottom of funnel, it's a lot of issues, but another one is like not making the content entirely product led. I see a lot of people shortcut the bottom of funnel process. But when you make it product led, what does product led mean? Well, describe your product. Like, what does it look like? What are the screenshots? Can you give me any gifts? Like, give me contextual examples.
Exactly.
Show me how it works? And a lot of people just skip out that with that, like they just have a section that says like features and it lists like 3 or 4 features. It's like that
Yeah.
is not product led. You know what I mean? Like product led is like you showing me demonstrationally how the product works in relation to the use case that we're talking about. That's how you show me product led content. But it's just like, again, it's tricky, it's difficult, takes a lot of time, and teams are just bogged down. Like they do not have the time to do this stuff. And that's like the common pain that I find amongst teams. Like they just don't, let me rephrase that. Maybe it's less they don't have the time, more of that they don't have a system in place to do this. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I would also like to believe the latter one, because if you have the systems, then I think you get the needle moving fast. I think
Yeah.
then, but I think with AI, things should be scaling a little bit on that front. Everybody is using AI to write content right now, but not everybody is doing it right. So I think
Right.
that connects to the previous question on what's the biggest mistake do you see people are doing right now and how AI can help solve it?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that people are probably doing wrong right now. So first of all, there's been a progression. When AI first kind of like hit the scene, I would say maybe like 2 years ago, something like that, when it got really indoctrinated, people were producing like 200 articles in 3 weeks and calling it a content strategy,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, that's not any real SEO knows that's not the right way to do things. From there, people started like, and I kind of caught this 2 years ago. I was trying to build a solution for it, but people started recognizing that, okay, the best content is not written purely from writing an input into an LLM. Like I need the LLM needs to be trained on my company, like my use cases, my persona, my industry, capabilities, pain points and features and benefits and all this stuff. And I think the natural progression after that was like, okay, teams are starting to upload internal documentation into GPT and using that to like prompt things and, pull from that. And I think but to go back to your question, I think the biggest mistake is just like people not taking the time to do deep customer research. That's the mistake. Even before you hit GPT, like, and maybe you can use like AI to help you with some of that customer research, not do it for you, but like create workflows around that. So for example, like if you have sales calls, record those sales calls and get AI to find the commonality amongst the sales calls. Like what are the pain points that are being repeated over and you know what I mean? So like just building internal workflows to be able to help you capture knowledge in a way where you can take that knowledge and then create a real customer centric content strategy from it. If there's a mistake that people are making, I would say it's focusing on SEO and not focusing on the actual customer. Like that's the mistake.
Yeah, I think that would be the biggest red flag when you are even viewing it from a 360 angle, and then that's where the mistake is. That's where the leak is happening in the in the funnel as well.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have talked a lot about AI and workflows. So what does a great AI powered workflow actually look like? And I think you're building high performing content, right? So how is your internal AI workflow looking like? And what's one thing that you can suggest people to get started on today?
That's a great question. So I would tell people like, don't listen to me when it comes to this because I went over the top. I got really cute. I built my own platform. I did all this stuff. 9 times out of 10, a lot of people do not have the time to do that. So I would say that's another thing. But what a good workflow looks like, it's steps, right? So like step one, we gather internal documentation. I'm literally running you through the steps that I do, but this is what it looks like. So, step one, we're gathering internal documentation. I'm talking about like ICP docs, battle cards, positioning decks, anything that describes what the product is, what it does, and who it serves. I'm gathering. Then from there, I have workflows where AI parses through the information to pull out the things that I need to be able to create bottom of funnel content, like pain points and features and capabilities. You know what I mean? So, like, that's it, it's layered in steps, and then typically from there I do something I call framework based prompting. Shout out to one of my followers who gave me that verbiage, but it's like so spot on. So the reason that my first drafts are really, really good is because I'm prompting from a framework. So for context, when I ran my consultancy from 2023 to March of this year, 2025, before I switched to BOFU.ai. So Authority Plug was the first consultancy, highly productized. And I was like working with teams on a done with you basis. We would plug content in the frameworks, publish it, boom, that's how we do it. But I took those same frameworks and taught AI how to produce from those frameworks. So the first draft of the article that we're getting is the framework. From there, that's when I'll have an editor come in and like edit up the piece from there. And then once it's in a good spot, then we'll publish, right? So it's a multi-layered process, but it's very meticulous. I've taken my time to build this because I'm trying to build nuance into AI and not just say scale this, scale that. Like it needs to be nuance built in. So I think a good workflow is a connector. It doesn't replace everything. It just fills in gaps where your team needs the gaps filled in. It's not the end all be all. You should always have a human in the loop. And that's like just how I think about things. But yeah, I would say a good AI workflow is just your process, but like AI built into a couple of different areas. And just to be able to help kind of, and I hate this word because it's like so vague, but like streamline the workflow because companies use it so terribly, but just like lies that type of workflow. So yeah, a good workflow is just like multi-layered step system that takes raw documentation to me and puts it into high converting content. Like that's what a good flow looks like, at least from a content perspective. Yeah.
Okay, I think that three-step framework, the AI workflow that you have just mentioned, I think it's gonna be a blast for people if they use it. And I would love for people to actually comment and say what worked after they try it in their own AI workflows. So thank you, Lashay, for sharing. It's gonna be helpful to a lot of people actually working in content spaces.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm really curious to know can you share a bit about your journey from Authority Plug to BOFU AI? Like we didn't talk about it, but I would love to know your experience as a founder and leading that change. I'm sure there must have been a lot of pivots. You must have seen a lot of different challenges as well. But then, do you want to share your story, your journey from there to here?
Sure. So I started well, first of all, I've been doing content strategy for like close to 15 years now. I count when I started at 15 years old and I was building websites. Like I was teaching myself content strategy then, but I didn't know it. In 2023, I was like, you know what? I want to start my own consultancy. Trust me, the decision was not very straightforward like that. It was very like, I had 2 jobs and got dropped from one because I hated it and had to lot of stuff in between. But I started that first consultancy in 2023. I had got on, if anybody knows, the Exit 5 podcast, which is like the biggest place in B2B. And Dave was gracious enough to get me on there, and then everything kind of blew up from there. Because on that pod, I was talking about bottom of funnel, and I really brought something to the forefront that other people did not talk about for whatever reason. And I'm like, "Hey, this thing bottom of funnel, here's how you should do it." Boom. Started booking sales calls from there, and I built my entire consultancy in Notion. So I had built a really highly productized process where it was like, step 1, we do this, step 2, we do this, step 3, we do that. And I noticed a gap in the market late 2023, really early 2023, but I didn't act on it until late 2023, like November. And the gap in the market was like, AI tools don't work from your internal documentation. And that's probably the reason that people can't write bottom of funnel content. Like there's no AI tool that can write good bottom of funnel content was my thought. And honestly, that's still my thought. I still have not found a tool that can write good AI bottom of funnel content, but I have something I'm working on to help close that gap. So we can yeah.
That's
But
crazy.
but at the end of 2020, I was like, "Okay, you know what? I've productized this consultancy quite a bit." I was growing to the point where it was like, I was gonna have to hire somebody, and I was like, "Oh, I really don't wanna hire anybody. I'm scared. I don't know if I'm a good leader." Bunch of internal stuff. So, I was like, "What if I could take my process and just, like, AI it, you know? So that's when like the concept of BOFU.ai was born. I was going to turn it into a product, but and this is probably a whole nother episode, but like change too many variables at once, right? I changed the pricing, the offer, it was just like too much. And while I was getting great feedback on the tool, for context, it was totally built in Coda. Like it was very like bare bones. I was getting amazing feedback, but nobody was giving me money for it. And I'm like, there's something going on. And then I had lost a deal to copy.ai. And I was like, me as a consultant, why am I losing a deal to a software company? And then it dawned on me like, well, that's because you created a software and you're trying to charge advising prices for it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I had to take a step back. This was like August, September of last year, 24. And I took a step back. I'm like, you know what? Let me go back to my old dashboard in Notion. Let me just do the thing like that. I've started selling, picking up a little bit again. And at the top of 2025, dawned on me. I was like, you know what? I had seen some stuff on LinkedIn, had followed a couple people, and I was like, what if I, instead of turning BOFU.ai into a product, what if I turned it into a consultancy? Like, what if I just did it like that? Done for you workflows for companies, bottom of funnel specific. And it literally
Boom.
just kinda took off from there,
Yeah.
so it's definitely trial and error, but that taught me so much, and I think the biggest lesson I came out of that with was understanding the difference between being a product and a tech-enabled service, and I got those 2 mixed up and confused. I was, like, pitching it as a software when I was actually still a service, but I was a tech-enabled service. I was putting more emphasis
Exactly.
on the tech than I was the actual strategy. So I kinda, like, flipped that on its head, and now I put more emphasis on the process and the strategy than I do the actual, "Hey, I have AI helping me do this stuff in the back end," you know? So I think that was the biggest lesson I pulled from that whole downturn of 2024 not being able to sell this,
Right.
was positioning is everything. Like, you have to watch how you position stuff because just slight positioning can literally turn the dial so much. Yeah.
Exactly. And enable you to do a lot more than that. Yeah.
Of course. 100%. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just got goosebumps because it just happened in a couple of years, right? It's not like a long lost story that
No.
you'd had a eureka moment. It just happened in a couple of
Yes.
years. You have seen the change, you evolve, you pivoted the way you should based on market trends, based on the feedback that you got. So I think it's really inspiring that you actually did that. And all the best to you because it looks exciting. And if there's anything I know who's the BOFU queen, everybody's saying it's you, and it's true. You know a lot, and not just saying it for the heck of it, but I truly believe that because I've used the previous frameworks that you have shared and it has worked. So it's not just words, it's actually practices that really worked out for people like me, like who were the consumers of that content. So just keep doing on what you're doing, and it's looking really good.
Thank you. Yeah, I honestly, it's just my way of paying it forward because I think people as many chances as I can, like, of like putting that attention on my content and even caring about what I have to say. So no, it's of course, like that's my way of paying it forward. Any way I can help somebody that's still in-house, type of freelancer, whoever that person is,
Yeah.
I wanna be able to help them in many ways as I can. So thank you so much. Like that's literally what I'm here to do. Yeah.
Sure. And I know in our last conversation, you mentioned you really want to give one aha moment for the listeners. So, what's one mindset shift or move our listeners can take to level up their content starting this week?
Ooh, okay, to level up their content style, ooh, is it content in general, like BOFU, like top of funnel, like because I wanna make sure I give them good advice, like, I don't wanna just give you terrible advice.
Right. We can start with top of the funnel and then we can focus more on BOFU. Yeah.
Okay. So, one content insight you can do this week, stop making your top of funnel content like very heavily definition based. The moment somebody enters your ecosystem, they should understand what your status quo is on the category. So, when we think of top of funnel content, you think of like, what is this or this statistics or topic, whatever. Immediately indoctrinate people the moment they enter your ecosystem from the top of the funnel and start injecting more opinion into top of funnel, right? It's not just a what is payroll, what is payroll management? It's how I feel about payroll management, how payroll management should be ran. Here's how most people do it and here's why we think that's wrong. So just like indoctrinate. That's what I would say you could do this week. Like start indoctrinating
Okay.
from a top of funnel perspective. Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we all start top of the funnel with just the basic definitions of what is this, but then let's shift to the very important thing. What about BOFU?
Yes. Whew, this one is a tough one because it's crazy. It's easier for me to give top of funnel advice. So I would say if you are having trouble, well, first of all, here's what I'll say. Start making your content more product led. Like if you have product screenshots, include them. Another thing I would say is like start communicating with your teammates. And I don't just mean people on the content team. I mean product marketers, some people from sales. You know what I mean? Because there are different elements that you need from each team in order to be able to create a good converting bottom of funnel piece. So start reaching out to people, even if it's just like, hey, how can I help you? Or what did you learn today from your sales calls? People will appreciate you even caring about what they're doing. But start if you can, start developing a little bit of cross-functional communication amongst the teams because that's where the alignment is. Like that's where the hidden gems are in cross-functional communication. Unfortunately, most companies are not cross-functional. And again, like I said in the beginning, that culture of cross-functional communication works from the top down, not the bottom up. So I would just encourage people to just reach out to people on your team. Again, if it's somebody from sales, say, hey, like what are the most common pain points you're hearing? I want to like put that in the content. Or say, is there anything you need from me? Because a lot of the times I found with a lot of companies have taken my bottom of funnel content and repurposed it into one pages for the sales team. Everything is connected amongst each other. You know what I mean? A lead might come in or a prospect might come in and I'll say, well, hey, I've been looking at this other product. How do you compare against them again? If you have a bottom of funnel article, you versus this person, you grab that piece and you send it over to sales so they can send it to the prospect. You know what I mean? And that's why cross-functional communication is so important. Just reach out to somebody. Like, that's my advice. Reach out to somebody from sales. It doesn't have to be like, super uptight or anything. Just keep it really like relaxed and say, hey, what are like some of the pain points you're hearing on the calls? And then take that insight and bake it into the articles you're producing. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope people just don't skip it to this part because that was the juiciest part of the entire podcast. But I had a great time, Lashay, and thank you so much for sharing a lot of the key insights on BOFU, on TOFU, and AI content strategy.
Thank you so much for having me on. Really hope I was able to provide value to somebody listening. Hopefully somebody resonated with like my rants that people like to listen to. So thank you so
I'm
much for
sure
inviting.
at least there are more than 10 people who would take it seriously.
That's good to know people take me seriously because sometimes
About talking to Lashay is how she takes something that often feels complex and overwhelming and just simplifies it. So, whether it's using AI the smart way, building high converting comparison pages, or shifting your mindset from publishing to converting, this episode was packed with real and actionable insights. So, thank you so much, Lashay, for your time today and sharing so many golden nuggets here.
Thank you so much again for having me.
Absolutely. And if you're a marketer sitting thinking our blog looks good, but it's not driving anything, now is the time to get started. Lashay, thank you for not just sharing tactics, but giving us the permission to expect more from our content. If you enjoyed this episode, send it to someone who's stuck in tofu mode. And if you try out any of Lashay's tips, let us know how it goes. Thanks for listening to Behind the Brief, and I'll see you in the next one.